I'm Tank Boy James, and then we're gonna check out a Sherman tank.
So now the Sherman is gonna come around.
Oh, this is great. Did you hear they're gonna fire it? Yeah.
Come out to the middle of the field. Just get ready for this to be a very loud bang. You can imagine that in a conflict zone, the Sherman will be firing several rounds per minute. Yeah, ready to spare. Commander, fire when ready.
Holy mother of God.
Now, thank goodness that was a safe place, you know? Or we no longer have a toss player.
Holy whoa.
Hi, I'm Tank Boy James, and this is the Sherman behind me. We are at the Oshawa Tank Museum. Is this cool or what? There's lots of volunteers who run this museum. Here comes the truck right now. I'm gonna check out the Sherman. This tank's name is Bart, and Gary here is going to tell me about all the history about this Oshawa Tank Museum.
Thanks, James. This is Bart, one of our running Shermans. This particular vehicle is used in parades, demonstrations, and whatever. It's the workhorse of the Second World War. There was 50,000 of these things made in the Second World War, and if you watch any war movies, all the Allies drove this kind of a tank. It's very well armored. Unfortunately, the weaponry wasn't quite strong enough to fight the Tigers and the Panzers that the Germans developed.
Yeah, like Tigers and Panzers, like...
They had very, very powerful guns.
Yes, and
but
much more powerful armor.
Yes. Well, even that, the armor on this thing, I don't know if you noticed, but you've got about that thickness of steel plate on the front.
Yeah.
And it's slanted so that if something does hit it, it will tend to bounce off unless it came straight in. So if a shell came in this way on an angle, it's got to go through about that much steel before it hits the guys on the inside. But if it
How many brave soldiers were driving this kind of tank?
driver, co-driver, commander sits up top, there's a loader and a gunner. So I think that should total 5.
This is the back end of the T-54-55. And then over here we got the M60. Remember this personnel carrier from the winter?
Are you ready?
This is a Russian.
No, I know.
Carrier. This is the first personnel carrier that had guns. This museum has so much more than tanks.
Well,
Right behind me is a Centurion, and they hope to get this running in a couple of years. Corporal O'Brien is going to teach me everything about my helmet.
So this helmet is a Mark I, probably World War II, converted to an airborne helmet. That's why it has the 3 connections here for the straps. That's why you have your chin strap like this. Normally you would have a strap to come across and go under your neck, right? But this is to keep the helmet on as you're jumping out of the airplane. Now, this helmet was probably used either with the French, the Dutch, or the Israelis. There's no real way to tell, because there's no markings on the inside to tell you what country it's from. but this would be probably post-war, probably 50s and 60s. Is what they would have used this for. Right? So you have yourself an airborne helmet.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Look at this tank, isn't it awesome? Like, it has a very cool gun, and it has very cool wheels. State the fact it has muck in the wheels. But I have my friend Corporal Brian, and he's going to tell me all about this tank.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? This is an M4A3E2 Stewart. It's a 1941-42 configuration. It has a radial engine, 7 cylinders. It runs on straight gasoline. It has a 90 to 100 liter gas tank on one side. And it was used as a light armor for reconnaissance. They never fought in these things. They were too lightly armored and they couldn't go up against the bigger tanks. It has a 37mm cannon on it. It has two, you'll see that it has oil bath air filters, one on either side. If you look back here, you have big doors. Very poor lighting, but this is a 210 horsepower radial 7-cylinder radial engine with 2 massive magnetos, one on the right, one on the left. Both of those magnetos produce 27,000 volts each. So it sends lots of spark to 2 spark plugs in each cylinder head. When the enemy heard it coming along, they would think it was a much larger tank because it's so loud when it runs. But it's the only configuration of its kind here in Canada, in North America that we think, but we know for sure it's the only one that's running in Canada.
So what you do here is you get all your tanks running.
Absolutely. It's the only museum of this kind in Canada. Everything we have here is fully functional, restored, maintained, and operational. So everything you see here, you would see running. Actually, some of our tanks will actually still fire blanks.
Check it out. Here comes the ferret. And this is UN ferret.
Welcome to the Ontario Regiment Museum. The Ontario Regiment Museum houses Canada's largest collection of operational military vehicles. The collection has over 80 vehicles which are in certain states of operation. All the vehicles are maintained by the Ontario Regiment Ferret Club, which is a volunteer organization made up of volunteers that are enthusiastic about military vehicles and our Canadian history. The museum houses thousands of artifacts detailing the history of the Ontario Regiment and the military history of Durham Region and Oshawa overall. Over the back of my shoulder we have the M60 Patton tank. It is one of 2 that we have in our collection. The M60 Patton tank last saw action in the First Gulf War in 1991 with the American Marines. It is a 68-ton monster of a tank. If you're interested in more information about our Tank Saturday events, you can always reach us via email at info@ontr, that's ONTR, museum.ca. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/Ontario Regiment Museum, and you can follow us on Twitter at ONTAR Museum.
Check it out. This tank museum does live tank demonstrations. You gotta come. Oshawa Tank Museum, you gotta check this place out.